I'd like to talk now about the philosophy and ethics of Epictetus. Epictetus was sort of a distant disciple of the great Greek ethical philosopher Zeno. Zeno taught on a porch or portico, which in Greek is a stoa poike, the painted porch. And it's from this word stoa that we get the term stoic, because this was the word attached to the philosophy of Zeno. And the Stoic philosophy was one which emphasized indifference to hardship. It became very, very significant, particularly in the Roman Empire. The Roman military, who had to face hardships regularly, embraced very strongly the philosophy of Stoicism. Unfortunately, we have almost no writings from Zeno, but we do know quite a bit about Epictetus, who lived much later in about 50 AD. Epictetus was a Roman, and he was a slave originally as a young man. Eventually he won his freedom, gained his freedom. But he was certainly used to hardship. There's a story that claims that when he was a young man serving as a slave to his sometimes drunken owner, one time his owner would become abusive, and one time his owner got him in a wrestling hold, was twisting his leg, and presumably or allegedly Epictetus said to him, if you keep twisting my leg, you're going to break it. And the man kept twisting it, and it broke. And at which point Epictetus said, well, there, see, I told you. The point of the story, it may be just a legend or a myth, but nevertheless, the point of the story is to emphasize the fact that Epictetus felt that the only way to gain happiness in the world really was to be indifferent to the things we cannot control. To back up a little bit, Epictetus and Zeno before him were opponents to a large degree of the philosophy of Epicurus. As I mentioned in another video, Epicurus believed that the goal of life, or the purpose of life, is to pursue pleasure. And although Epicurus was mostly concerned with what he called passive or negative pleasures, being freed from worry and stress, nevertheless he felt that pleasure was, the chief goal of human life. Also, as I said in the earlier video, Epicurus was a materialist. He felt human beings were nothing more than matter, atoms. Zeno and, of course, Epictetus believed quite the contrary, that human beings our body may be matter, but our mind is really a fragment of the divine. And as such, the goal of living for pleasure alone is really, unhuman, inhuman. It's beneath our dignity, for a number of reasons. Number one, pleasure is unpredictable. Our desires are, for one thing, unpredictable. The achievement of desire is very much unpredictable. We don't know whether we can achieve our desires or not. And as much as the philosophy of Epicurus is, tantalizing in some respects, when you think about what he said in terms of the fact that we should pursue, passive pleasures, music, philosophy, so forth, he's obviously talking largely to wealthy people who have the time and the leisure and the opportunity to pursue the pleasures, whether they be passive or active. But where does that leave the rest of the human race? How about the rest of us who don't have the time and the money to just go off to the beach or the mountains and contemplate the sunrise? In this sense, the philosophy of Epictetus is much more useful for the average person. Also, he, being a believer in the divine, he says that God understands the whole universe. God understands what's going on, and God knows how everything fits together. So even though we cannot be like God and know everything, we can know what's going on around us, and we can know what's in our control and what is not within our control. And one of the main points of the philosophy of Epictetus is the idea that we are not in control of external events. We do not determine our status in life, whether we're born rich or poor, or whether we're going to be subject to accidents or illness or whatever happens. We have no control over these things. So then what is it that causes suffering or pain and so forth? And his point is that it is not simply a question of the pursuit of pleasure, but it's the achievement of harmony. When we can achieve harmony with the world around us, we can live in a way which is satisfying. When we can understand our position and fulfill our duties in life. So there's a lot of Plato here. There's a lot of reference to the idea of understanding the proper relationship between ourselves and what goes on around us. There's a lot of reference here to the idea of living the virtuous life, living by, in agreement with reason, by reasoning out what is the appropriate sort of way to live. So Epictetus is very much aligned with the Platonic school, and to some degree Aristotle's philosophy as well. But his point is that in addition to thinking clearly, we also have the God-given gift of will, that we have the ability to choose, and to choose to do what we can do, and to not do what we cannot do. By this I mean, if we can't control the events which go on around us, then there's no point in worrying about it. So the one thing we can control is our will, is our attitude. So when we will to have the right attitude, then we can be the masters of our situation. And what is the right attitude? Well, for Epictetus, this again was apathy or indifference to the vicissitudes of life. We should never be stressed out by the things that occur around us. We should never take our joys too seriously or our sorrows. To think of it this way, when you're in a waiting room for the dentist, which is worse, actually getting your teeth, drilled, or the fear that occurs while you're waiting and thinking about it? And Epictetus said that really it's the perception and the fear that accompanies perception which is the hardship for human beings. And what we should really do is realize if there's nothing we can do about it, then we should be indifferent to this. So his apathy for him was the secret, this indifference. I don't mean not wanting, good things to happen, but not worrying about what we can't control and being indifferent to the ups and downs of life will make life much more pleasant and allow us to achieve the kind of peace of mind that we seek, whether we're rich or poor, whether we're, in good health or bad health. We have to accept this. And even death, since it's inevitable, is not something we should worry about, because if we can't avoid it, then we should just accept it as a fact of life and go on. So the key point, the key component for Epictetus is this indifference to, the ups and downs of life, and it is through this and through our rational commitment and will to accept the things that occur to us with this equanimity, which will lead to the peace of mind that we all presumably seek. And that's, in a nutshell, the philosophy of Epictetus.